We put that right, in the motion.
It's there.
It's right there. It's right there, Mark.
It is.
We put it right there so that he could vote for the words that he put in the agreement.
You gotta cut the grass to expose the snakes, and my word, you would think it was summertime with all of those little slitherers trying to find somewhere to hide right now. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment your thoughts down below. Share this video as well. You know, we're going to be talking about the MOU vote, express visas to the tune of billions of extra revenue being allocated towards foreign elites that get to reap the rewards no Canadian citizen would ever qualify for. What is happening is so obvious if you are just willing to open your eyes. Watch how angry they get, how much they squirm, and how much they try to deflect. They'll call it theater, sure. I call it exactly the point, though.
He had a high-profile resignation from cabinet and former Minister Guilbeault, which is going to hurt him in parts of Quebec. The pipeline itself is an unpopular notion in the lower mainland of British Columbia, which could cost some seats to the New Democrats. And members of his Net Zero Advisory Committee have been resigning in protest of the rollback of environmental policy that's in this. Why would he do all of those things and take all of those hits if he wasn't serious about trying to get a pipeline to the Pacific coast?
Well, I believe that he understands that Canadians want to see some progress on this. Canadians overwhelmingly support exporting more of our oil and gas. Canadians definitely want to diversify our trading markets, but he doesn't believe in it himself. Remember, he wrote a book called Values, where he described himself on a very integral level, and he talked about his love of carbon taxes, his belief that we need to leave our natural resources in the ground. I mean, he talked about making people go through great hardship in the next few years. So I believe it's a case that, look, he can read the polls, he can see where the Canadian people are at, but he doesn't actually want to do it because he doesn't believe in it. So he's trying to do half measures. Now,
it's a lot of capital and effort to waste on something you don't want, though.
If I'm wrong, right? He could show up tomorrow and he can vote in favor of our motion and clearly say, I support a pipeline.
We are going to be picking all of this apart, but overall, to kind of summarize this, the vote was no. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives had put forth a vote on the MOU on whether or not you would support a bitumen pipeline on the West Coast, going to the West Coast, being able to actually diversify our trade. Mark Carney, the Liberals, the Bloc, the NDP, the Greens, literally everybody voted no.
So what's divisive? What's divisive is a Conservative government in Alberta signed up for the entire MOU. The entire MOU. The Conservative government in the federal government, the Conservatives are trying to cherry pick, to divide. What they should be talking about is the entire MOU. That is what the government of Alberta signed up for, the entire MOU. It is what we have signed up for, the entire MOU. People can have issues with particular pieces, but we are supportive of the entire MOU.
You are supportive, but there are many of your other caucus members who are not supportive.
The caucus is supportive of the entire MOU.
The whole caucus is.
Yes.
Now, yes, there was some drama because, you know, Pierre Poilievre didn't include absolutely everything inside of the MOU. So then he decided to make an amendment to include absolutely everything, of which Tim Hodgson just said the entire caucus is in support of.
By this government of economic self-harm, of discriminating against Canadians. Now, the Prime Minister suddenly claimed that he'd reversed himself. He signed an MOU. Now, to believe that he is actually committed to the MOU, you have to believe that he now says he was wrong about everything he wrote and that the Liberal government did in the preceding 10 years. That he was wrong about the emissions cap, wrong about the electricity regulations, wrong about shipping oil through a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific, and wrong about the tanker ban. And he was wrong about all of those things, but you'd have to believe that he has accepted that wrong. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's give him a chance to come in the House of Commons and vote in favor of what he promised. So Conservatives brought forward a good faith motion just to make sure that Liberals meant what they said, to get them all in the House of Commons to vote on whether they want a pipeline to the Pacific and whether they're prepared to open up our waters to shipping energy overseas. Now, the Liberals went dead quiet. I expected them to enthusiastically applaud this gesture of goodwill. They went dead quiet over the weekend, telling reporters on background they had no idea how they were going to vote on their own MOU proposal for a pipeline and an adjustment to the oil tanker moratorium. I even used wording right out of the Prime Minister's MOU to make it easy for him.
There's a lot of official excuses here, which we're going to analyze, but it's really important to note that this isn't philosophical. This isn't symbolic. This is a hard vote record on whether or not the Liberals support Alberta oil reaching tidewater and our economy reaping the rewards for that and truly diversifying our trade.
But it still wasn't easy enough. As we know with Liberals, they often start by making promises and then they go to making excuses. So they've now been generating a whole lot of excuses about why they have to vote against the wording in their own MOU. Let's go through some of the excuses. That it didn't mention that they want to accompany the pipeline with a carbon capture project. They claimed that it didn't go far enough in spelling out Indigenous engagement and ownership. They claimed that it didn't clearly lay out the plan to engage with British Columbia. Now, forget for a second the obvious fact that if the Liberals are telling the truth when they say they support the whole MOU, then they should be prepared to vote for any part of the MOU. After all, it's their MOU. So that obvious contradiction aside, we know the Liberals have made these excuses. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm going to help brush away those excuses for them. We're going to amend our own motion in order to include the things that Liberals claim we left out.
Which he did, which they still voted no on. And yes, this is a lot of theater. Yes, this is a lot of playing politics, as some people like to call it. This is also the job and the role of an opposition party, though. So don't let that get totally confused. If it was the Liberals, they'd probably do the exact same thing. But at the end of the day, the purpose of this vote wasn't, that we're going to have a pipeline approved tomorrow. The purpose of this vote was to show Canadians exactly how infrastructure cancellation has been happening in our country for the last decade.
Today's motion that's being put on the floor is not a no vote for the MOU. It's a no vote against the Conservatives playing games and creating optics and wasting parliamentary time when they should be voting on things that are way more important.
Look at that right there. That is such a perfect example. And oh my gosh, your blood might be boiling. I'm sorry. But with the clip that we have coming up next. But it is the perfect example of exactly how this Liberal Party operates, which is on fear, guilt, and shame, right? Oh, the Conservatives should be voting on things that are way more important. What on earth is more important than our economy? What on earth is more important than that? Please tell me.
But the Conservatives show right now, by bringing this motion, that in their hands, they would disrespect neighbouring provinces, they would disrespect Indigenous rights holders, and they would disrespect the fight that we need to bring for Canadians against climate change. They like to talk about pipelines. They don't like to talk about climate change and climate action. We're going to continue working to bring action forward. They're trying to drag us behind with a motion like today. Thanks.
The thing about this all and all of the noise around it is just that it's so blatantly obvious what the Liberals are actually doing. Shame. They're just shame. Shame, 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 shame. Shame on you for wanting to use the power within the federal government, which is actually the federal government's job when it comes to nation-building projects. Provinces don't have a veto at all. First Nations don't have a veto either. Coastal First Nations isn't even a First Nations band. They're an American-funded activist group. But alrighty then.
Watching the leader of the Conservative Party lose in slow motion today has been a little bit amusing, but what's more interesting is watching him do it with a big grin on his face because he's so proud of himself. He's proud to vote against childcare, and he's proud to vote against school food programs, and he's so proud to vote against affordable housing. But what else he's proud of today, he's also proud to call climate change just weather. And he's also proud to refer to Indigenous people with a possessive noun. They're not ours. Mr. Speaker, he seems very proud of himself, but you know what Canadians are proud of? They're proud of our institutions. They're proud of programs that support them, and they're proud of this side on this government. We're supporting them.
And Mark Carney, his playbook here is so classic managed decline, which if you want to remain in power, you kind of bank on, right? Because you don't ban the industry overnight, you just eventually regulate it into some permanent submission, which is exactly what the vast majority of industries in Canada are currently facing. And if you have never read Mark Carney's book, Values, I highly encourage that you do it. I know there's a lot of people who don't want to because they don't want to support him. And I mean, on that note, at the end of the day, I would rather support him with the couple dollars maybe that he gets in royalties from my purchasing of his book from Amazon so that I actually know what's going on than continue to waste billions of dollars of taxpayer money on stupid things that I have no clue about, that I don't understand the complexity in how he's going to try to sell it to us. So I personally think it's a worthy investment. I know that it sucks, but at the end of the day, this book tells us a lot.
Hope to gain by doing this? Exactly what they're doing. They're forcing the Liberals to pick a side. And you're either on the side, seemingly, of building pipelines, but not only building a pipeline, getting that oil to market, getting that gas to market, getting that natural resource that we have that is our most amazing competitive advantage against the rest of the G7 to market. It's the one thing that when we're talking about, do we want to diversify our trade? It's the one thing we can actually send, but it has to get on a boat off the coast of BC and go somewhere. And just like the US that ships their oil up the coast of BC, we want our oil to go up the coast of BC. And the sticking point here is that the Liberals aren't supportive of getting rid of that oil tanker ban right now.
The funny thing about all of the excuses for why they're not going to support it is it completely busts a number of their narratives. Number one, that they're going to work with every party. That's obviously a lie. I mean, history would tell us that as well. But also the fact that it actually doesn't matter what is included inside of this MOU, even all of the Indigenous consultation, carbon capture emissions, blah, 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 provincial cooperation. The fact of the matter is this vote just showed that they don't want a pipeline under any conditions ever, which is exactly why they put in all of those ridiculous additions that no other country in the world has. And that is exactly why all of our production, all of our investors are going to keep fleeing south. And that's exactly why Canada is in the bad economic state that it is due to all of that really unnecessary bloated bureaucracy stuff. And, you know, when I say that, I'm not sitting here advocating that we should become the next China and just have smog-filled cities. Nobody wants that. Thank goodness we don't, though. Thank goodness that we actually have some of the cleanest product on the globe and that even provincial leaders are adamant that they want to make that even better. You can't make that better without any revenue, though. You need money to try to innovate and to invest in better products, in better manufacturing lines, all of that stuff. And so,
well, I mean, I think one of the things they should be pretty aggressive out on media and platforms like yours and other programs is just say, look, the MOU, I mean, all the gamesmanship that we just described aside, the MOU between Prime Minister Carney and Premier Smith has enormous public support. I mean, it has more than 2/3 of Canadians. We know this from independent public research that's been done. Abacus has polling data out there. In British Columbia, in Quebec, the two regions of the country that were seen to be the most antagonistic towards this, it's a 2-to-1, even 3-to-1 net positive. The public wants to see reasonable accommodation. They want to see Canada become wealthier. They want to see Canada become less dependent on Donald Trump's America.
Do you owe back taxes or haven't filed in years? Because now is the time to resolve your tax matters. With the national conversation around abolishing the income tax system, the IRS is fighting back and proving they are here to stay by becoming more aggressive than ever before. They're sending out more collection notices, filing more tax liens, and collecting billions more than in recent years. The IRS can take your wages, bank accounts, Social Security, retirement, and even your home. If you owe or haven't filed, it's not a question of if the IRS will act. it's when. And right now, Tax Network USA is offering a completely free IRS research and discovery call to show you exactly where you stand and what they can stop before it's too late. Their powerful programs and strategies can save you thousands or even eliminate your debt entirely if you qualify. Don't make a serious mistake representing yourself or calling the IRS on your own, waiving your rights and costing you more money. They are not on your side. Get protected the right way with Tax Network USA and start the process on settling your tax matters once and for all today. Call 1-800-958-1000 or click the link below for your free discovery call with Tax Network USA. That's tnusa.com/Jasmine. Don't let the IRS be the first to act.
They want to see our resources developed responsibly. They want to see partnership with Indigenous Canadians. They want to see us selling our products to global markets and creating Canadian jobs as a result of it. They want to see these things move forward. And so I think members of Parliament, certainly Liberals who want to be ideological and put personal pique and their personal perspective ahead of the national interest, I think they're ultimately going to be the losers in this. And I think the Prime Minister should be finding ways to get the message out to Liberal MPs that the MOU you might have a little bit of discomfort with it, but it is still a process that has all kinds of opportunity for people to intervene with their perspectives. But the concept that the Government of Canada would back away from our core campaign commitment, the reason my Prime Minister Carney is the Prime Minister is because he said he would do things like the MOU. He said that he would find compromise. He said that he would work with provinces and with premiers like Daniel Smith in order to get things done. So if you're voting against the MOU, you're voting against the reason why Prime Minister Carney was elected. So be very careful about what you're going to do tomorrow night. So it's a time for choosing for those Liberal MPs.
And that long-term strategy is so important because so many people will say, oh, well, Danielle Smith, how could she do this? Of course she did. Of course she would take that bait. She's playing a game too. Like, no duh. She would stand there with Mark Carney and a smile on her face after signing this MOU where Alberta sacrifices a lot, climate change wins, and where ultimately Mark Carney is going to be judged by these results. If nothing gets done, think of the leverage that Conservatives will have, that Alberta will have. Like, we are going to learn so much so fast based on that MOU getting signed. And that's not to take away from the fact that this sucks. People are angry. People are disappointed. Of course they are. There has been so much sacrifice from Canadian citizens. For what? For what? Honestly. But at the end of the day, politics is all about that long-term strategy. And too many people get way too caught up with the short-term, immediate feelings and noise of the situation. But the way that I can frame all of this is that as frustrating and annoying as it is, and I hear you, I feel those same things. When you take yourself out of the short term and you're trying to put the pieces together of what this could look like in another year or even in another few months, it honestly looks pretty freaking good for us in terms of strategy and leverage. I mean, think about the fact that Mark Carney has been Prime Minister for almost a full year. We're coming up on that. What's gotten done? What has actually improved that isn't just a cherry-picked data set? What?
Speaker, it's Monday and we have good news. Canadians knows it. It's all in the budget, Mr. Speaker. There's a lot of good news.
One can't raise a book like that. It's one thing to read or quote from it, but we can't wave it around.
Speaker, I understand. I think that the budget would be a great Christmas gift, Mr. Speaker, to all Canadians. I would just hope that the Conservative would wake up and make sure that they vote for the budget before Christmas, Mr. Speaker. We're going to build our nation. We're going to create jobs. We're going to build housing. We're going to create infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, this is the best gift they can give to Canadians. I just hope they'll do the right thing for them.
You know, the thing I love the most about this is the fact that there's actually like tons and tons and tons of graphs showing you exactly where Canada is at and the global context, like all of these things. Like, there is so much information in here. You know, it's really funny about this budget 2025 book, by the way, is when I was able to get a copy of one physically, just because I do not do well with reading things online. Like, I need a highlighter. I need to be able to mark my page and take notes. And so having something physically is very important. And printer ink is very expensive. But in terms of him saying, this is the best thing you could get for Christmas, I was talking to Josh from the Elevate podcast, who I talk to literally every day. And he said to me, he's like, you're the only person I know who would be so excited to have a physical copy of the Canada Strong budget book. And I am. It was the best Christmas gift I've ever received, even though it wasn't supposed to be a Christmas gift, but I'm taking it as one because, wow, it is so important to go through this. And this is all available online to see the actual record versus the talking points, which is that the national average home price has nearly doubled in almost every single province since 2015. Rent inflation is outpacing wage growth in most of our cities as well. The CMHC has also repeatedly missed its own affordable housing targets every year for the last number of years. And federal housing programs get announced, backlogged, delayed, they're underspent. So the reality is that if this was going to be a government plan that was going to actually help us, why is it the exact same failing one that has failed us for the last decade? In terms of infrastructure, major projects take 10 to 15 years to approve in Canada. All sorts of really big projects get stalled, re-reviewed, quietly canceled, delayed. It's just such an absolute nightmare. Whereas the United States of America approves similar projects in 1 to 3 years, sometimes in less than a year. Ottawa does not build. They manage decline through process. It is unbelievable to me that these people can sit up on stage and yell in the House of Commons and just lie through their teeth because they know that their plan doesn't work. They know that spending more does not end up yielding better than results. They know that because if their plan worked, we wouldn't be in a broken housing crisis. If infrastructure was a priority, Canada wouldn't be approving projects slower than any peer nation. If job creation was serious, investment and people wouldn't be fleeing, and we wouldn't have to bribe foreign elites to come and work here.
So it is my pleasure today to announce that we will be attracting 1,000 new researchers, the best and the brightest in the world, and we will have the biggest budget on earth to do that. $1.7 billion, $1 billion for research chairs, $400 million for research infrastructure, working with Canadian Foundation for Innovation, $120 million for early career researchers, and $134 million for top international doctoral students and postdoctorate researchers. So we will not only be doing that, but we will have concierge services when it comes to immigration. So we will make sure that these researchers are well supported and can get through the immigration process quickly.
That's the thing with the Liberals. It's always about bribes and corporate welfare, and then also just getting your general population hooked on welfare that they then brag about. Oh, it's so great that you can't feed your kids. We're not going to fix that, but we will give you this government program that's going to end up costing you more in the long run to give your child a meal that's a Chewy bar. Okay, great. You know, if they really knew how to fix this, they wouldn't have waited until year 10 to try, because that's the thing. All of this from the Liberals is just political survival instinct. And it's such a damn shame, because what Canada actually needs is a leader. We actually need somebody who's going to make the hard choices that are definitely going to upset some people, because there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all solution. It's all trade-offs. There's always going to be trade-offs, and you're going to make people mad with those trade-offs. But at least under a different government, those trade-offs would likely benefit the vast majority of Canadians versus the fringe minority of Canadians who are these crazy activists who the rest of people, they just are so scared of being called an ist or a phobe that they just go along with it, even though it's hurting them. This is not a new government. This is not a reset. This is the same cabinet with the same ideology and the same fiscal strategy. The obvious question here, if they had the answers, why on earth didn't they use them for the last decade? And do you really believe that they're gonna start using them now? I don't think so. I'm Jasmine Lane. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment your thoughts down below. And I'll be honest, tomorrow's episode might be a little different, might be a little bit more personal. I had a really hard time falling asleep last night based on some things that I saw, and I needed to collect my thoughts a little bit better, so I didn't end up reporting on it today. But I'm triggered. Dare I say, I'm absolutely triggered. And I might go scorched earth tomorrow because I'm pretty freaking fed up. And I am willing to bet that calls for my cancellation will be very loud after tomorrow's show. So stay tuned for that. I will talk to you very soon.